Okay, 6.3, graph a line using intercepts. When you graph a line using intercepts, you need to be able to figure out how to get those intercepts and be able to plot them properly to draw your line. So you don't always need a slope. Sometimes you just need the intercepts of a line to figure out how to draw it. So we have an example here. Joanne loves reading. She has $48 to spend at her favorite used bookstore. She likes comic books, which cost $4 each, and novels, which cost $6 each. Determine an equation to model this problem. Second part, determine the X and Y intercepts. So, first things first is we need to look at a word problem and be able to get an equation to model the problem. That is, we need to know how many of each type of book she's going to get. Well, we know that X represents a certain number of books. Let Y represent a certain number of other books. That is, let X represent the number of comic books. Let Y represent the number of novels. Now we need an equation to represent this statement. All right, so here we go. $48 is how much she has. What is she going to buy with it? Well, she'll spend $4 for every comic book, that is X, plus she will buy a certain number of novels, which cost $6. So 6 times Y. And that, folks, is one linear equation to represent the problem. Now, next part, you're asked to find the X and the Y intercepts. You can do this one of two ways. The way we're going to... Now, wait, just before we do that, we need to understand where 48 equals 4x plus 6y came from. 48 was the total value of how much money she had. 4x is how much $4 per comic that she is paying. And 6y represents, X represents the number of comics, 6 represents the $6 per novel that she's paying for, and Y represents the number of novels that she buys. Now, to determine the X and Y intercepts, what we need to do is find the X-intercept by setting Y equal to 0. That's probably the best way, folks, to be able to get it, rather than memorizing a formula. X-intercept means that the X, it crosses the X-axis and does not cross the Y-axis. That means that the Y value is 0. So we set Y equals 0 into the equation that we found in part A. So here we go. Let's try that again. Just a moment. I will clear the screen. Okay. 48 is equal to 4x plus 6y. We want to put y equal to 0. So we have 48 equals 4x plus 6 times 0. So 48 equals 4x plus 6 times 0. 6 times 0 we know is 0. So we end up with, and again, remember that an x-intercept means it crosses the x-axis. Anywhere where you cross the x-axis, the y value is equal to 0. So one more time, we note that all x-intercepts have a number, comma, 0. That is, again, where it crosses the x-axis. So we need to find the coordinates. That means that 48 is equal to 4x. That means that x, we divide both sides by 4, and x will equal 12. All right, so we know that the x-intercept is 12, 0. That's the first one. Okay, now we're going to look for the y-intercept. What do we need to do to get the y-intercept? Well, let's clear the screen and look for the y-intercept. The y-intercept is going to be sub x equals 0. We need to sub x equals 0 because, again, into the equation, so we're subbing x equals 0 into the equation because, think about it, and a y-intercept means that x is 0. Okay, if you're not and you end up with 48 is equal to 4 times 0 plus 6y, means that 48 is equal to 6y. What does that mean about y? Well, y will equal 8. So our final statement is the x-intercept is 12, 0, and the y-intercept is 0, 8. So we know the x-intercept and the y-intercept for this linear equation. Once we do that, part C is to ask, what do the x and y intercepts represent in this situation? So this is something to note. An x-intercept and a y-intercept doesn't just mean it's just that. It means a lot more when it comes to a problem. That is, the x-intercept was 12, 0, and our y-intercept was 6, 0, 6. Well, with 12, 0 means that Joanne can buy 12 comic books if she buys 0 novels. The y-intercept, 0, 8, means that Joanne can buy 8 novels if she buys 0 comic books. So this means that for these values, these are the maximums. That means that Joanne can buy no more than 12 comic books. So that's kind of like the idea of a restriction. If we're thinking about restrictions, what this is saying is that there is a restriction on the x. Joanne can buy anywhere between x can be anywhere between 0 and 12. So that means that Joanne can buy more than 0 books, but less than 12 comic books with the money that she has. So this is known as a restriction. In the second part, it says Joanne can buy 8 novels. What does that mean? Well, in terms of y values, means that the y values she can buy between 0 and 8 novels. So she can buy between 0 and 8 novels with the money she has. Okay, so one more time. With the 12, 0 means that she can buy anywhere between 0 and 12 comic books. With the 0, 8 means that she can buy anywhere between 0 to 8 novels. And this 0, folks, has to do with you can't buy less than 0 books. So these two have nothing to do with the actual coordinates. Note that these numbers is the minimum you can buy. You can't buy negatives, so that's why we have to start at some number, which is 0. So these are restrictions on the variable. Part D says graph the equation using the intercepts. So we're going to graph the equation using the intercepts. And we graph a nice big graph. So I'm going to note some important things. We have a nice big graph. And we can see from this is going up by 2s. And this every 2 block is going up by 1. And what we note is we plot these points, the y-intercept and the x-intercept, 1 here and 1 over here, and we connect that line. These dots here represent the different parts of the buying process. So, for example, looking here, if she buys 8 comic books, she can't buy any novels. Okay, sorry, 8 novels, she can't buy any comic books. But if she buys 6 novels, she can end up buying 3 comic books with 6 novels. Over here, this means that she's buying 4 novels right here, 4 novels and 6 comic books. Over here would be 2 novels and 8 comic books. And finally, this last one is 12 comic books and 0 novels. So this is all Joanne can buy within this range. Technically, we couldn't even connect these lines because she can't buy part of a novel. But again, you'll be asked to graph the equation, and that equation represents a line. But you have to understand the restrictions within the problem. Okay, moving on. Example 2. determine the x and y intercepts and graph each line. So you have an equation and another equation, and you have to determine the x and y intercepts and graph each line. All right, so let's look at this. 6x minus 3y equals 12. We want to know the x and y intercepts. To find the x-intercept, we take y equals 0 into the equation, and we get 6x minus 3y, 6x minus 3 times 0 equals 21. 6x is equal to 21 over 6, which results in, when you simplify it, 7 over 2. Next, we want to find the y-intercept. Y-intercept is sub x equals 0 into the equation, and we get 6 times 0 minus 3y is equal to 21. That is, negative 3y is equal to 21. That means that y is equal to negative 7. So if we were to graph this, folks, we would graph 0, 3.5 at 0, and 0, negative 7. Plot the dots, connect the dots, and draw your line with arrows at the end of it. The final answer will have an equation 6x minus 3y is equal to 21. That is the equation of that line. All right, let's look at the next example. 4x minus 8y plus 16 equals 0. What you need to do is find the x-intercept, so y equals 0, into the equation, and we get 4x plus 16 equals 0. That is, 4x is equal to negative 16, x is equal to negative 4. The next piece we need to find is the y-intercept. Sub x equals 0 into the equation. We end up with 4 times 0 minus 8y plus 16 equals 0. Okay, just a moment. That's a little too fast for you all. We'll go back a sec. All right, so x is equal to negative 4. That's our x-intercept. Our y-intercept is sub x equals 0 into the equation. 4x minus 8y plus 16 equals 0. We put it into that equation, and we get 4 times 0 minus 8y plus 16 equals 0. We isolate for 8y. We get negative 8y is equal, negative 8y plus 16 equals 0. That means negative 8y is equal to negative 16. That means that y is equal to 2. So when we plot it, we plot out negative 4, 0, which is here, and 0, 2, which is here. Plot the points, connect the points, extend it, and draw an arrow. Don't forget to name it, folks. The name of that line is 4x minus 8y plus 16 equals 0. Okay, so we've worked with determining the x and y intercepts and graphing each line. Moving on, folks. Example 3, determine the equation of the line with intercepts at the following: negative 6, 0, and 0, negative 4. We need the equation of this line. Now, what I want you to do is to try and think how we could get that. Give yourselves a moment, folks. Okay, we're back. Y equals mx plus b is our equation of a line. It could be in standard form or slope-intercept. We're choosing slope-intercept here. M is our slope and b is our y-intercept. Those are the values we must fill in for the equation of a line. Our b, we're given in the question, is negative 4. Our m is what we need to find out. Well, we have 2 points on the graph, so we can easily use the formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is, write the points going upwards, negative 6, 0, and then 0, negative 4, so that's our rise. And then we're running, minus, minus, minus. So 3 lines, negative, a minus, a line, and a minus. That's our point. So rise, let's try that again, just one more time, so that you understand. Our slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is negative 6, 0. So this point, you write upwards. Next, you're going to write the next point upwards, 0, negative 4. Okay, And then the last step is to draw 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. Well, what is 0 minus minus 4? That will turn into 0 plus 4, which turns into just 4. On the bottom, you have negative 6 minus 0, which turns into negative 6. So 4 over negative 6 results in negative 2 over 3, and that is our slope. So our final equation is going to be y. Now, let's look here one more time. We'll go back for a second so you can see what happened. So our equation is going to be y equals negative 2/3 x minus 4, and that's known as slope-intercept form. But what happens if I change the question? Let's say the question said put the equation in standard form. How'd we do that? Well, we would still have to find it in slope-intercept form and then convert it afterwards to standard form. That is, we're going to multiply each and every single term by, you guessed it, the lowest common denominator. What is it? Well, it's 3. So we're multiplying everything by 3. What will the next line equal? Well, it will equal 3y is equal to, that's right, negative 2x minus 12. So we've now converted everything so that there are no more fractions or decimals. And now we're going to make this into standard form. That is, the x has to be positive. Which side are we going to move everything to? Yep, that's right. You guessed it. We need to move everything to the left side. So our final answer is going to be 2x plus 3y plus 12 equals 0. That is, the equation in standard form of the line is 2x plus 3y plus 12 equals 0. All right, folks. Well, that's the end of the lesson. Have a numerical day.